The night was unlike any Springfield had ever seen. A vicious storm tore through the sky, its lightning jagged and unnatural, casting the polluted waters of Lake Springfield in a sickly green glow. Thunder rumbled like the growl of some ancient beast, and the air grew thick with an oppressive dread that seeped into the bones of every resident. In the Simpsons household, the family huddled around the flickering TV, oblivious to the horror about to unfold. From the depths of Lake Springfield, a figure rose. Jason Voorhees, the silent killer of Crystal Lake, was no longer just a man. Transformed by a malevolent force straight out of a Junji Ito nightmare, his form was both corporeal and ethereal, his iconic hockey mask gleaming with an otherworldly sheen. His presence didn't just inspire fear, it infected minds, twisting thoughts into grotesque parodies of reality. The curse had begun. Homer Simpson was the first to feel its grip. As he dozed on the couch, a vision assaulted him. Marge, her blue hair matted with blood, her face contorted into a scream as her limbs twisted unnaturally. Bart and Lisa stood nearby, their eyes hollow, their bodies unraveling like threads of flesh. Even baby Maggie, crawling toward him, had a mouth full of jagged teeth. Homer jolted awake, his scream drowned by the storm. "Marge, the kids!" he bellowed, stumbling to the kitchen. Marge, stirring a pot of spaghetti, frowned. "Homer, it's just a dream. Go back to the couch." But Homer's eyes were wild, his hands trembling. The vision felt too real, too vivid. He couldn't shake the image of his family torn apart by him. Across town, Bart Simpson skateboarded through the storm, reveling in the chaos. The rain soaked his clothes, but he didn't care. Near the edge of Lake Springfield, something caught his eye. A hockey mask, half buried in the mud, its red markings, stark against the white. "Cool," Bart muttered, picking it up. The moment his fingers touched it, a chill ran through him, like a whisper in his skull. He shrugged it off and slipped the mask on, grinning. "Time to scare Milhouse," he said, his voice tinged with something darker than usual. As he skated away, the mask seemed to pulse, its eye holes glowing faintly in the rain. Lisa, ever observant, noticed a change in Bart the next morning. His usual pranks had a cruel edge. Tying Milhouse's shoelaces to a flagpole wasn't just mischievous. It was malicious. At breakfast, Bart wore the mask, refusing to take it off. "It's awesome, Liz. Makes me feel powerful," he said, his voice low and unfamiliar. Lisa's brow furrowed. Bart's eyes, barely visible through the mask's holes, were glassy, almost lifeless. She tried to grab it, but Bart snarled, shoving her back with surprising force. Marge intervened, scolding him, but Bart just laughed. A hollow, chilling sound that made Maggie cry. Homer's visions grew worse. At the nuclear power plant, he saw his co-workers as grotesque caricatures. Lenny's face melted like wax. Carl's arms sprouted writhing tendrils. Mr. Burns appeared as a skeletal figure, his eyes bleeding black ichor. Homer fled to the break room, hyperventilating. "They're all monsters," he muttered, clutching his head. His colleagues, unaffected, laughed it off as another of Homer's meltdowns. But the terror was real to him, each vision chipping away at his sanity. Meanwhile, whispers spread through Springfield. Ned Flanders claimed he heard voices in the night, urging him to confess his sins. Moe, pouring drinks at the tavern, swore. He saw shadows moving in the mirror behind the bar. Even groundskeeper Willie, usually unflappable, muttered about a demon in the loch. The town's usual quirks turned sinister, the air heavy with paranoia. Lisa, determined to understand what was happening, snuck into the school library after hours. In a dusty corner, she found a tattered book titled Springfield's Forgotten Tales. One chapter spoke of a curse. Decades ago, a man wronged by the town, betrayed, mocked, and driven to his death, swore vengeance. His spirit, the book warned, would return as a force of unrelenting terror, twisting the minds of the living. Lisa's heart raced. The description matched the growing dread in Springfield, and Bart's mask seemed too convenient a coincidence. That night the storm worsened. Lightning struck the Quickie Mart, setting its sign ablaze. Homer, unable to sleep, wandered the house, muttering about monsters. Marge, growing frantic, tried to comfort him, but her own fears were surfacing. She caught glimpses of her family in the shadows, distorted, wrong. When she checked on Bart, she found him sitting in the dark, the mask still on, sketching. The drawings were horrific. Milhouse with his eyes gouged out, Nelson torn in half, Lisa's face a mass of oozing sores. "Bart, take that thing off," Marge pleaded. Bart turned, his grin wide and unnatural. "Why, Mom? It's part of me now," he said, his voice a guttural rasp. Lisa, clutching the book, confronted Marge. "Mom, something's wrong with Bart, and Homer, and the whole town. I think it's a curse, a real one." Marge, shaken by Bart's behavior, listened as Lisa explained the legend. But before they could act, Bart appeared in the doorway, the mask glowing faintly. "You can't stop it," he said, his voice no longer his own. Thunder roared, and the house plunged into darkness. As the family stood frozen, the storm's fury seemed to echo the chaos within. Springfield was no longer the quirky, colorful town they knew. It was a canvas for a nightmare, painted in the grotesque strokes of Junji Ito's imagination, and at its heart was Jason Voorhees, his curse tightening its grip on their minds, their fears, their very souls. The storm over Springfield showed no signs of relenting, its relentless howl a backdrop to the growing madness. The curse of Jason Voorhees, unleashed from the depths of Lake Springfield, tightened its grip, transforming the town's vibrant chaos into a tableau of dread. The Simpsons' home, once a haven of dysfunction and love, now felt like a pressure cooker of fear, with Bart's possession by the mask and Homer's unraveling mind pushing the family to the brink. At Springfield Elementary, Bart's behavior escalated from mischievous to malevolent. Wearing the cursed hockey mask, he orchestrated a prank that left Milhouse dangling from a basketball hoop, his screams echoing through the rain-soaked courtyard. Principal Skinner, attempting to intervene, froze as a vision assaulted him. Bart's form twisted, his limbs elongating into sinewy tendrils, the mask pulsating like a living thing. Skinner stumbled back, muttering about demons in the school, his usual authoritarian demeanor crumbling. The other students, sensing something wrong, whispered about Bart's new cruelty, their fear feeding the curse's power. Lisa, determined to save her brother and the town, tried to rally her family. At breakfast, she pleaded with Marge, "Mom, Bart's not himself. That mask is doing something to him, and Dad's visions, they're part of it too." But Homer, slumped at the table, was lost in another hallucination. The kitchen walls bled, and Marge's face morphed into a grotesque parody, her eyes sinking into her skull. "They're coming for me, Marge!" he wailed, knocking over his coffee. Marge, torn between calming Homer and worrying about Bart, barely registered Lisa's words. "Lisa, I can't deal with your theories now," she snapped, her voice trembling. Marge's own fears began to surface. As she cleaned the house, she caught glimpses of her family in mirrors and windows. Homer with a gaping maw, Lisa with skin peeling like paper, Bart's mask fused to his face. Each vision chipped away at her resolve, the cornerstone of her role as the family's anchor. She clutched her cross necklace, whispering prayers, but the images only grew more vivid, suggesting her love was not enough to hold them together. The curse was turning her devotion into despair. Beyond the Simpsons' home, Springfield descended into chaos. At the nuclear power plant, Mr. Burns cowered in his office, tormented by visions of his workers as grotesque abominations. Smithers, with a face like shattered porcelain, Lenny with arms sprouting eyes. Paranoid, Burns ordered the plant locked down, accusing his staff of mutiny. In Moe's tavern, the bar's dim lights flickered as Moe saw his regulars transform. Barney's flesh bubbled like boiling tar. Lenny's laughter became a guttural snarl. The bar itself seemed alive, its walls pulsing like infected tissue. Moe, gripping a shotgun, barricaded the door, muttering about the end times. The town's law enforcement fared no better. Chief Wiggum, patrolling with Lou and Eddie, saw every citizen as a monstrous criminal. Crusty with claws, comic book guy with a mouth like a lamprey. Convinced Springfield was under siege, Wiggum fired wildly at shadows, his bumbling incompetence replaced by violent paranoia. The police station became a fortress of fear, its officers turning on each other as the curse fed on their suspicions. Lisa, realizing the town was collapsing, sought help from Professor Frink. She found him in his lab, surrounded by whirring gadgets and scribbled equations. Professor, Springfield's cursed, Bart's possessed, Dad's losing his mind, and everyone's seeing things, she explained, showing him the book about the vengeful spirit. Frink, adjusting his glasses, nodded gravely. Hoy, this aligns with my theories on psycho-spiritual interference. This entity, likely your Jason, operates in a nightmare. Dimension Glavin. To stop it, you must confront it there. He revealed a prototype device, a clunky helmet rigged with wires, designed to project consciousness into the nightmare realm. But beware, Frink warned. You'll face your deepest fears. Lisa convinced Marge to gather the family for Frink's plan, but persuading Homer and Bart was no easy task. Homer, now barely coherent, rambled about monsters in the walls, while Bart, still wearing the mask, sneered at Lisa's efforts. "You can't fix this, Brainiac," he growled, his voice layered with an unearthly echo. Marge, despite her own visions, used her maternal authority to drag Bart to Frink's lab. Though his resistance was unnerving, he moved with a predatory grace, the mask seeming to meld with his skin. As Springfield burned under the curses, influence, neighbors accusing each other of monstrous deeds, fires breaking out in the chaos, Frink prepared the device. The family, battered but united by desperation, sat in a circle, the helmets strapped to their heads. Homer whimpered, Marge clutched Lisa's hand, and Bart, restrained by straps, hissed like a caged animal. Frink flipped the switch, and the world dissolved into static. The storm reached its zenith, lightning illuminating the lab as the family's consciousnesses plunged into the unknown. Springfield streets were now battlegrounds, its citizens lost to paranoia and violence. The Simpsons, tethered by their fragile bond, faced an uncertain fate in the nightmare realm, where Jason's power was absolute. As the machine hummed, a final vision flickered in Lisa's mind. The hockey mask, floating in the lake, its eye holes staring directly at her. The world dissolved into a haze of static as the Simpsons' consciousnesses plunged into the nightmare realm, guided by Professor Frink's device. Springfield, as they knew it, was gone. The family awoke in a grotesque parody of their town, where streets twisted like veins, buildings pulsed as if alive, and the sky churned with a sickly crimson glow. Shadows slithered at the edges of their vision, whispering their insecurities. Jason Voorhees, the curse's avatar, loomed in this domain, his presence a suffocating weight that promised to unravel their minds. Homer was the first to confront the nightmare's cruelty. The distorted Springfield materialized as the nuclear power plant, its reactors oozing black ichor. His co-workers, Lenny, Carl, and even Mr. Burns, appeared as towering monstrosities, their faces split into gaping maws that accused him of failure. "You're nothing, Homer," they chanted, their voices a chorus of his self-doubt. Worst of all, Marge, Bart, and Lisa emerged from the shadows, their bodies mangled, blaming him for their suffering. Homer's instinct was to flee, but a flicker of love for his family anchored him. Clenching his fists, he roared, "You're not them," and charged through the illusions, his determination shattering the vision. The plant crumbled, leaving him trembling but resolute. Marge found herself in a nightmarish version of their home, its walls lined with eyes that wept blood. The rooms shifted, each one a stage for her fears. In the kitchen, she saw herself as a neglectful mother, her hands stained with her children's blood. In the living room, Homer and the kids rejected her, their faces cold and alien. The curse whispered that her love was a lie, that she'd failed to keep them safe. Marge's heart wavered, but her resilience, the quiet strength that held the family together, surged. She clutched her necklace, now glowing faintly, and declared, "I am enough." The house shuddered, its oppressive weight lifting as she pushed forward, driven to find her family. Bart's trial was the most visceral. He stood in a desolate schoolyard, the mask now fused to his face, its edges digging into his skin. A doppelganger appeared, a demonic Bart, its body a mass of writhing tendrils, the mask glowing with malevolent life. "You're weak," it sneered, "just a troublemaker who'll never change." The double attacked, its claws tearing at Bart's resolve. Memories of his pranks, his failures, and his family's disappointment flooded him. But Bart's stubbornness kicked in. "I'm not you," he yelled, clawing at the mask. With a surge of defiance, he tore it free, the act sending a shockwave through the nightmare. The doppelganger shrieked and dissolved, leaving Bart bloodied but himself again. Lisa's journey took her to a living library, its shelves writhing like flesh, its books screaming with forbidden knowledge. Pages flipped to reveal Springfield's sins, greed, betrayal, and a forgotten tragedy. She learned the truth. Jason was the manifestation of a man named Ezekiel Crane, a worker at the tire factory, betrayed by the town decades ago. Mocked, cheated, and driven to his death in Lake Springfield, his rage birthed the curse. The library's guardian, a grotesque figure with 1,000 eyes, challenged her. "Your logic is useless here." Lisa's intellect faltered under the onslaught of irrational horror, but she clung to her empathy. "I understand his pain," she whispered, and the library parted, granting her the knowledge to confront Jason. The family reunited in the heart of the nightmare. A warped town, square where Jason awaited. He was no longer a man, but a colossus of flesh and shadow, his mask a vortex of despair, his body sprouting tentacles that dripped with inky malice. The air thrummed with his power, each pulse a reminder of their fragility. Homer shielded Marge. Marge steadied Bart, and Bart clung to Lisa, their bond a fragile light in the darkness. Lisa stepped forward, her voice steady. "Ezekiel Crane, we know your story. Springfield wronged you, but this isn't justice." Jason's form flickered, a human silhouette briefly visible within the monster. Lisa continued, "We're sorry. Let us make it right." The family joined her, their voices united in apology, not just for Ezekiel, but for every hurt they'd caused each other. Homer's sincerity, Marge's compassion, Bart's raw honesty, and Lisa's clarity wove a force the curse couldn't withstand. Jason's form convulsed, his tentacles retracting, his mask cracking. With a final, anguished wail, he collapsed into a pool of black water, banished back to the lake. The nightmare realm shattered, and the family awoke in Frink's lab, the storm outside finally subsiding. They were battered, Homer's eyes haunted, Marge's hands trembling, Bart's face bruised, Lisa's mind racing, but alive and together. Springfield stirred from its collective nightmare. Neighbors, shaken but relieved, began to rebuild, their quirks slowly returning. The Simpsons sat on their couch, closer than ever, though the scars of their ordeal lingered. Homer hugged Marge. Tightly, Bart apologized to Lisa, and Marge kissed Maggie's forehead, grateful for their survival. Days later, a news report played on the TV. Kent Brockman, his usual smarm subdued, reported strange activity at Lake Springfield. The camera panned to the water where Jason's mask floated silently, its eye holes glinting with a faint, malevolent light. A whisper, barely audible, echoed through the broadcast. Not yet. The Simpsons exchanged uneasy glances, knowing the horror might not be over.